Okay.
All
It's not
right.
start soon. Oh,
We're starting. Great morning, all. Naya Powell here and Leslie
great
Stevens-Tavera.
morning.
So happy Saturday. This is our last Saturday, you all, in Black History Month. And so we're so excited to be joining you and hope that you will really gain a lot and glean from today's talk. So today's Utopia talk is really around mental health is wealth and abundance, especially as we talk about our Black community. So Black mental health and physical health and emotional health is wealth and abundance. And not just when we say abundance, we're going to unpack that. Unpack that is also, a testament to our resilience, our joy. But one of the things that we really want to get into today is the stigmas around mental health, right? We also want to unpack that resilience factor, which is something that we're very proud of, as Black people, because we have endured and overcome so much, and so much to be proud of, you all, to celebrate. However, anything out of balance can be harmful. So when we feel that we have to be so strong all the time, so resilient all the time, it can really be a barrier to us getting the support, leaning into our community, getting the therapy, the counseling, and all the things that we need to truly show up, to truly thrive, to truly be there for our families, our communities, our careers. Hey, Marquita. So she can't hear us. That's weird. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I don't know why you can't hear us. Um, all right. So let me do this. We're going to do a quick pause. It's okay to pause. So we're going to do a quick pause, and I'm going to ask Leslie if
Yeah.
you could check from your phone and see if you can hear us or hear me as you check in from Facebook.
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
Mhm.
You can hear me through
Yep.
the phone. All right. So Marquita's on LinkedIn. She can't hear from LinkedIn. Can you try from LinkedIn on my page?
Sure.
See if you see me there. All right. And Marquita, let's also check your settings as well. We're checking our settings because we want to get this right. So great morning, Marsha. Great morning. Audio sounds clear for Marsha on LinkedIn. Beautiful, beautiful. So Marquita, try maybe logging out and logging back in. All right, so we're gonna keep the ball rolling here. So again, Naya Powell here with Utopia Spa Global Wellness, also Leslie Stevens-Tavera, and we're gonna be talking about Black health is wealth and abundance, right? And so, you know, um, just to give you all a little bit of a context for those that might be joining the Utopia talk for the first time, we really wanted to come together this last weekend of Black History Month and celebrate Black health and wellness and talk about it because it's something that we really need to talk about. The Black community suffers more than any other community from health disparities on every single level.
Right.
And we need to unpack that. Why is that, right? Before we do that, let me just tell you a little bit about me, and Leslie will tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to get into a conversation. And we want this to be super engaging. So flood the chat with your questions and your thoughts. Yay, Marquita can hear us. Awesome. And so, and let us know where you're joining from. Let us know where you're joining from in the chat. We'd love to know. So I'm coming to you from Durham, North Carolina, Bull City. Leslie's joining us from
Carborough.
Arbor in the house. And so, so a little bit about Utopia Spa Global Wellness, and we'll dive right in. So Utopia Spa Global Wellness provides live and 24/7 on-demand virtual wellness experiences. So we provide you with classes from yoga, Pilates, to Tai Chi, to multicultural movement like Bollywood, reggaeton, African dance, and mindfulness and wellness coaching. So Leslie is a member of our mental health professional team as a wellness thought leader
Mhm.
with Utopia, and she provides wellness coaching, every other Monday. So we really offer a holistic approach to multicultural wellness. In addition to that, we are a mission-driven social enterprise. We believe in giving back. In addition to our classes, we also offer a high focus on corporate wellness, wellness workshops, and even global spa wellness retreats. We have one coming up to West Africa in October. It's going to be epic. And we have 3 slots left, only 3. So I'll throw that out there. But we're also really helping employers to retain and attract talent by elevating the health, wellness, happiness, and belonging of their associates. We know we're in a talent war, and we're really combating the global stress epidemic that we are all facing.
Right.
And I'm so proud that we have thought leaders from 4 different continents on our platform, and that we have been able to meet the needs of our community across 7 countries and 5 continents. So excited about that. We're doing amazing things here, and thank you for joining us this morning. So Leslie, take a moment to introduce yourself. Love, collabing with you and doing these talks with you, but let the people know a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. My name is Leslie Stevens-Tavera, and I am a wellness coach and thought leader with Utopia Spa and Global Wellness. I am also the co-founder of Congruence Counseling Group in Carborough, North Carolina. So we are a mental health counseling group where we serve the needs of folks who are dealing with depression, anxiety. I specialize in perfectionism, grief and loss, life transitions, stress management, bipolar, the gamut of mental health issues. So I am so thankful to be here with you, Naya. So thankful to be a part of Utopia Spa and Global Wellness, and just giving hands of service, right? Because we are in a pandemic, an epidemic on so many levels, and mental health is so important if we are going to continue to sort of fight the good fight of life and show up for ourselves and our community. So I love taking space with you and just being able to share with the world the importance of caring for your mental health, wellness, and well-being.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I also want to say this conversation is so important, you all, that if you are watching, please share it. Share it to your feed, so other people know that this is happening, because I don't want to sound extreme, but it could be a matter of life or death.
Certainly.
We suffer more from suicide than any other community, and that's deep.
Yeah.
Okay. And even our babies,
Yeah.
at higher proportions, not just all of the other areas, diabetes and blood pressure and all the other things. So I want to share this quote that I think is super powerful. And we're going to unpack it. And we're going to get into some stats, because I love to share data and facts. And then we're going to talk about some solutions. We're going to have a conversation. So this is a quote by Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgent. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Whew, that's heavy.
That's powerful, right?
It's powerful.
That is powerful.
What does that mean to you, Leslie?
Yeah. So what that means to me is if we radically put ourselves first, right? And that's like, oh, we don't do that in the Black community, right? You care for others first and you put yourself last, right? But when we radically can put ourselves first and actively engage in self-care, we preserve ourselves, we save ourselves. And that way we can show up for the rest of the world. We can show up for our families. We can show up for our community. We can show up for our organizations. If we care for ourselves first, we're doing more for ourselves and our communities politically than we would do if we poured from an empty cup and shared and gave into everybody else first. So when we take care of ourselves, we're able to be better and be more full to care for one another.
That's so deep. I was watching a show on Netflix, and it was it's some of you may have seen it. It's kind of I think it's a docu series about Black women all throughout the country, all throughout the United States, and self-care. And you hear this term radical self-care, and we have to unpack that. And I want us to unpack that. And this is not a conversation just for women. This is a conversation for our men and our women. This is a conversation for our children too. This is a conversation for our community. And this is a conversation that extends beyond wellness and self-care, extends beyond any particular ethnic group, but this is Black History Month. And so we really want to just kind of dive into the challenges that we're facing today, but it's a conversation for all, right? And it was really mind blowing to me because I think a lot of times we go through life and we normalize things that are not healthy, and because it's just what we know. We just do what we know. We do what we've seen our moms do and our grandmothers do, and they did what, and they're modeling what they saw their mothers and their grandmothers do. And when you think about that, the reality is that doesn't put us that far away from being brought to this country, right? And so for those of us that are here, we are survivors and thrivers, right?
Yes.
And so we've overcome a lot. And I want to unpack that because these women were saying, I never learned self-care. We learned that you don't even have time not to be okay.
Right.
You have to keep it going. You have to keep it together. You have to make sure that the kids are taken care of, the household's taken care of, the husband's taken care of. You still have to work. You have to do all the things.
Right.
Whatever it looks like, it's different for each and every one of us. So even a moment to pause when we say, "Hey, girl, how you doing? I'm good," and half the time we're not. And so we have seen this play out in the most devastating ways. When we even think about, beautiful Chelsea Christ,
Mhm.
former, USA. Who would have thought, to look at her career and to look at, her beauty and to look at her intelligence as an attorney and a public figure and someone that, has hosted many shows. Who would have ever thought that she was struggling
Mhm.
so deeply on the inside?
Yeah.
And do we feel that it's okay? Do
Yeah.
we feel that it's okay to say, because actually most of us don't, because we've never seen that model.
Mhm.
And Leslie, you did a wonderful event last week, and I'm so blessed to have been a part of it. And it was a certified safe space, and it focused on Black women and vulnerability.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Black community today.
Mhm.
However, I don't feel that conversation is that different for Black men.
Mhm.
I feel it is probably even harder in
Mhm.
terms of feeling safe because women, we talked about how we felt like we were alone in that
Right.
conversation.
Right.
And we talk to each other more than our men do.
Mhm.
So unpack that for me in terms of why you even felt the need to do that.
Yeah, certified safe space was this brain baby that came up because I began to sit with after an acupuncture session, right? So after I've reached enlightenment and I'm just open and ready for things to flow, right? And I'm just sitting with this idea of vulnerability, and I said, who do I feel safe being vulnerable with? How
Mhm.
can I share my story, and how can I share parts of me, and who do I want to share parts of me with? And I didn't look so much as to how to find a solution for my own vulnerability, but I looked at the idea of more Black women don't feel safe being vulnerable, right? And I'm a therapist, right? So I deal with the vulnerable parts of people, of Black women, of Black men, like every day, all day. But I'm often the only person that people feel safe sharing those vulnerable parts with. So I just wanted to open a space where Black women could come together and one another, each other, to
Yes.
not even talk through solutions. There weren't solutions given. It was saying, this is how I felt ashamed. This is how I felt I couldn't open up. This is how I felt afraid. This is what I felt when it came to me in terms of showing up and being vulnerable. And so all we shared was our experiences about how challenging it was to be vulnerable and the messages that talked through why we couldn't be vulnerable. And in those moments of talking about the trials of being vulnerable, we were vulnerable, and
Yeah.
we opened up some things and we cleared some things, and we came away from that 1 hour and 15-minute conversation feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit freer, a little more connected. So I realized in that moment it is such a need to have more certified safe spaces,
Oh my
more open spaces for small group intimate discussion for women to really be vulnerable with one another. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Black men too. If we could create this, for everybody who needs it, it'd be amazing.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do that, Leslie. Maybe we'll do that for our men too. I mean, you do it. I think it's okay, right? Like until you find maybe that thought partner therapist that is a Black man that you want to collab with. But if you are out there, hit up Leslie because we need to have
Yeah,
more.
hit me up.
So I want to say this. I want to acknowledge the chat. So we got people representing from Columbia, South Carolina, Bowie, Maryland, and I love seeing what Marquita has shared. You know, it's so hard to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
He's not alone.
Yeah.
He's not alone, because half the time you feel like, I even have girlfriends say, you know, who wants to hear it anyway? So at the end of the day, I love the honesty that it feels so uncomfortable. Even sometimes it can even feel embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I would say let's do some self-talk here and unpack that and say it's not. Because when we show up, and that was the beauty of that space, to say like, these are the times where I haven't felt okay.
Right.
When was my first time even seeing what vulnerability looks like? Was there mixed messages? Did I even see it in my household? Did anyone ever even really say like, how was your day? Are you okay? To even show us that care.
Right.
And I think about how many experiences and stories I've heard and lived where at the end of the day, because we have so much to try to keep together, that we don't feel like we can even take a moment to put the mask on ourselves, to be okay. What happens is over time, our foundation gets weaker and weaker because it's not being maintained, just like our home, right? Just like our home, just like cracks in the foundation of our home, the cracks in our emotional well-being are real things. And if we don't tend to them, if we don't have community, if we don't have therapy, and sometimes our community, they're going through things too. And they're not always, and this is the thing I've come to understand. I am so blessed to have friends and family. I'm so blessed that Leslie is also a friend. I'm so blessed, right? But at the end of the day, all of us human beings are going through our stuff.
Right.
And sometimes our friends are not always, and our family, sometimes they're not always equipped to be able to give us the sounding board, the guidance, the unbiased or healthy counsel, professional counsel. And so it's almost like if I were to run outside, and I don't want to say this, if a person, I'm not going to put myself in it, if a person were to run outside and accidentally fall and then break their arm, I am not going to go to my girlfriend that is, let's say, a school teacher to fix my arm.
Right. Please fix my arm. Yeah.
I'm going to the doctor.
Right.
And I want someone, and I don't want to just any doctor. I actually had ankle surgery, and I had one of the best orthopedic surgeons in the country. And I wanted to know his credentials. I didn't even want no resident. So I'm definitely not going to just any old body.
Right.
Why don't we take the same level of care and attentiveness when it comes to our mental health?
Right.
Why don't we take it more seriously? Because the battlefield starts in the mind, y'all. If our mind is not healthy, nothing. This is the head. Everything comes from the head.
Yeah.
Everything is a trickle down. Nothing else will be healthy. Our self-talk, our speech to ourselves, our others, our relationships with our families, all of it will be, what does it look like, Leslie? First of all, two-part questions. Why is it? So 80% of Black people have stigmas around mental health. Let's unpack that. And then I want you to tell us how it shows up, what it looks like, because I think it's important that we be able to see ourselves, and understand what it actually looks like.
Right. So that stigma runs deep, right? Only within the last 30 to 40 years have we seen the acceptance of Black therapists, Black psychologists. Only within those last 30 to 40 years, right? Have we been able to get into this field and show up for people who look like us?
Yes.
Prior to that, a generation knows what it feels like to go to the doctor and then be worked on for something that you didn't go to the doctor to be worked on for.
Wow.
So there is a distrust of the medical system and the medical institution and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists. As doctors at that time, we don't have to be doctors now, we can be master's level clinicians, but as doctors at that time, we were all grouped into that. If I go, you're going to give me something, or you're going to do a procedure on me that I didn't ask for. I'm going to come home with a body part or two missing, or something's going to happen because you chose to operate on my Black body. You chose to experiment on my Black body, which says that my Black body isn't worth it in America. So that stigma comes from the medical system abusing, unfortunately, our Black bodies.
Wow.
So now that we have Black physicians and Black doctors and Black psychiatrists and Black psychologists and Black therapists and Black counselors, you know, within the last 40 years, we get to show up and show up differently. But the stigma is there. The stigma is there through decades, through generations, unfortunately.
It's deep. It's deep and it's real. It's real. And so, you know, we think about like the Tuskegee experiment, you know, we think about like Henrietta, you know,
yeah.
We think about all of these ways that we have, and those are just the ones we know about. Those are just the ones that we know about.
Yeah, but it was a wide practice.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you for breaking that down, because I did not realize that it was only 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. Our parents were not going to be talking about going to see the therapist, because that was not even a reality.
No.
Because we didn't exist.
Yeah. And moreover, if a person had a psychotic break or maybe PTSD, or maybe they were a war veteran or something, right? And then they come home to the Black community, you know, we had tight-knit communities, right? Mm-hmm. Then they had to be hospitalized and put on more drugs and antipsychotic medications, which may have done something else to their bodies or their brains, right? They come back to the community, they are crazy. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you have to go for treatment, if you have to go to an inpatient unit at that time, you were labeled as crazy. So then further perpetuating the stigma. And two, like, let's say you are a mom and a wife and you actually had a job, right? And you were doing all these things. Let's say you have a bout of anxiety. You have to go to the mental health board and you're crazy, right? So it's different, right? We deal with anxiety now. We deal with depression now. You come see a therapist. Then you go to a hospital and you're checked in and you come out and you're shunned by society or by your community, right?
So I think, and I want to make sure that we actually, you know, tackle that too.
Yeah.
Because we need to remove that word crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That was the label. That's where the stigma comes from. This label of you are crazy, right? Yeah. And people don't want to associate mental health and crazy with themselves. So exactly, we have to unpack that word, because when we show up for therapy,
language is powerful. So what's the new language for that? So
right, yeah, absolutely. I'm dealing with depression. I'm dealing with anxiety. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with mental health issues. Mm-hmm. We're not crazy.
I want you all to know this, 83%, and the number I'm sure is higher, because, you know, by the time research stats and data are actually published, it takes time. So 83% of the workforce is suffering from levels of depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. So that means if there was a room of 10 of us sitting here, that means 8.5, and those are older scats. So I would find it hard to believe that in this COVID era, our third iteration, probably going into fourth, watching the news, I would say it's probably close to 9 to 10, 90 to 100% on some level. I just want us to be okay with understanding that, you know, I want us to think about our mental health similarly to our physical health. Okay. And we struggle with getting the care we need for that as well. Right. But I want to think about the fact that if we were running hard, deadlines, whatever the case, family matters, sickness, and we did not get any sleep, let's say for a week or two straight, would we feel comfortable saying that we were tired, that we were exhausted, that we didn't feel good? I would feel comfortable with saying that. Most of us would, because it's physical, right? And so when it comes to emotional and mental, we have been so conditioned to be so strong. And it's really the only way we survived. The only way that we were able to survive enslavement was to compartmentalize, to push things down, so that we almost detached ourselves from what was really happening. And you can unpack this a little bit too. When I hear stories of people that have had, that have actually experienced schizophrenia, like I hear people talk about stories of people in their family it's been interesting to me as a holistic lifestyle strategist, as an executive coach, and I think just the way God wired me, I'm so fascinated by human behavior.
Hmm.
Every time I've heard a story, that break has been a follow on to something traumatic.
Yeah,
You know?
often. Yeah.
So, what I want to say is, we were never designed to be abused and mistreated, or abused and mistreating others.
Hmm.
So, if you continue to ignore the fractures in your house, in the foundation, water's coming in, mold is setting in, it's going to become a very unhealthy environment.
Certainly.
If we continue to run and run and run and never drink any water or never eat any food, we're going to pass out. We're
Hmm.
not going to be able to go. So
Hmm.
we continue to absorb all of the pressures of life, the stresses, the things that is a result of things that we can't control.
Hmm.
And if we don't have the tools, and if we don't go and get the repair, the checking in, the maintenance to make sure we're okay, just like going to the doctor, just like going to the dentist, just like making sure that our cholesterol is in check, or our blood pressure. We need to do better with these things too. Or if we get a broken arm, then we actually go and get a cast on it so we don't end up with a limp arm the rest of our life, or living the rest of our life. We have to tend the same way. And so I
Right.
want to share these stats. We talk about 80% of Black people are concerned about stigmas around mental health for all the reasons that you just shared.
Hmm.
I want you to know that if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling depression, you're actually feeling what most people are feeling right now, and it's okay. And
It's
you don't
okay.
have to always feel that way.
Hmm.
Just because you feel that way in the moment doesn't mean that you'll have to always feel that way. And it doesn't mean you need to try to figure it out on your own, because having support and community is one of the best doses of medicine you could ever have, right?
Hmm.
The mistrust of the healthcare system impacts our health for all the reasons that Leslie just shared. In 2018, 2.4% of Black Americans ages 18 through 25, college age, and right out of college, made a suicide attempt,
Hmm.
compared to 1.5% in 2008. So, in a 10-year jump, 10-year time frame, we saw that number go up a whole percentage.
And it's the second leading cause of death amongst that population. Suicide is the second leading cause of death amongst that population, 18 to 24.
And they're just starting. They're just starting out in life. What do you attribute that to, Leslie? What do you think that's about?
It's a lot of factors, right? It's high stress, right? But it's also these environmental factors. So this combination of nature and nurture, whatever trauma and traumatic situations you may have experienced as a young person, but also too matriculating into this whole new world of adulthood, this independence, this need to survive or thrive on your own. And depending on what happened in your household or your family of origin, you might feel ill-equipped, and you might feel like you're not supported, and you might begin to feel hopeless. You might begin to feel like no one loves you and no one's caring for you. Also, in this world of social media, right, there's this need to compare. There's this just innate desire that we humans have, this sort of survival of the fittest, to compare and our lives to someone else's. And if our life isn't going the way we thought that it could go or should go, or how it lines up according to somebody else's, we begin to feel depressed and anxious and like we're not doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's
Yeah.
powerful. And what would you say would be some ways? And if you all are in the chat and you're listening and anything is resonating with you, chime in, share with us. If you have things that are working for you, or questions that you have for Leslie or myself, put it in the chat. This is really a talk or conversation, and we want to hear. We want to hear from you too. Leslie, what are things that people can do to, and especially, and I want to touch on something. Social media is wreaking havoc on us. If you have not watched Social Dilemma on Netflix, check it out. I think it's something to watch with your family. I think it's something to watch with your teenagers, your preteens, your kids. If they are on social media or going to be in the next years, we need to really understand the power and impact of social media on our psyche
Right.
and self esteem, and that comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. And you could see on that, it just kind of blew me away how we could see the hostility, the anger, the people that actually created some of these platforms. They were some of the creators, developers. Now that they see what it's doing, they have totally removed themselves from these companies. They do not allow their children on these devices. And they are now starting a new movement called conscious tech because they see how it's now been polarizing in the most horrible ways and detrimental to children and their psyche and their self-esteem, and how, they're living for likes. And then as soon as one person, after they've had, let's say, 50 people say they're beautiful, as soon as one person says you have Dumbo ears, this literally happens on the documentary, you see her self-esteem shatter in that moment. And so there's so much that's happening with, technology has a lot of wonderful benefits that we know. We just have to make sure that we are wise and balanced and looking and checking in and making sure that we understand that our value and our worth is not rooted in social media likes. So what can we do more of or start doing?
More less screen time, right?
Yeah, I love that. More less screen time.
More less screen time. More pulling away, more pulling into cultivating us as individual humans and our souls, right? And moving your family into that place. I like how you mentioned, like, bring your family in to watch it, like allow this to be a movement, right? As a community, more of what we did with vulnerable safe space, more community engagement, more one-on-one time, more let's sit down together and relate to one another. Let's just get in tune to ourselves, into the soul, into the spirit, more meditation, more prayer, whatever, spirituality practice you practice, get in flowing in tune with that, right? Identifying yourself, more self-esteem work, more loving on yourself. You and I always talk about the power of self-talk, more affirming for ourselves that we are wonderful, we are marvelous, we are God's workmanship, we are beautiful creations, right? More boosting ourselves up. And when you see one another, let that light shine. Hey, beautiful. Hey, handsome. How's it going? What's happening here? Really being interested in one another's lives, like here, instead of like, oh yeah, that's a good thing. Like, right? So coming back to the personhood and one another and each other in the best way possible.
Yeah, those words made me smile just hearing you say that. So I want us to understand that there is life or death in our mouth, in our tongue. So speaking life into one another and being present is two things that I heard you say, and that's the beauty of community as well. So I love it. Marquita said screen time Sabbath. We call it having a digital detox day. We talk about that in my book, 30 Days for Living, which is a book full of self-care strategies and a self-care toolkit that you can create. Yes, please do. And maybe you think about a time in the evening that you shut it, that you say, by this time, phone's off. It's, no more social media. I just kind of unplug from that. And then I always believe we have to have healthy replacements. So what will that replacement be? For me, I am a huge practitioner and believer in journaling. So I start my day this way. Maybe for you, it's in the evening. Maybe it's your wind down ritual where you're turning the lights down, you're using lamp lighting, you light a candle, and this is for the whole house. And then maybe you're playing some really relaxing music and you're unplugging from the news by, let's say, 9 o'clock. Okay. And so your house is going more into a place of your sanctuary, your self space. For me, it's soaking in the tub. What are your rituals of your self-care rituals and practices? And it's called a practice because the more you do it, the better you become. So if you play sports, your kids are in sports, they go to practice before the game. So in order to really, foster and cultivate that spirit of excellence in anything, even in your self-care, it's a practice. New journal from my girl Andi. I love it. It's so pretty. But so what are you doing? And then I also, I think sometimes we struggle with just even the language, right? If we're not used to having these kind of conversations with our family, easy language, like especially if you have, it doesn't matter if it's you live with a parent, you live with your significant other, your spouse, or your children around the dinner table. Hey, let's hear everybody's, what do you want to call it? Your peak, your pit, your peak, your valley of the day. You'll learn so much by just asking those questions. What was your highlight of the day and why?
Right.
And what was most disappointing, or what kind of threw you for a loop today and why? My little one puts on meditation station. She goes to bed. Go ahead, heart, heart. And I ask these questions to my nieces, and I'm always amazed at what I learn. What I learn. It's very different than how was your day. It's even very different than what did you learn today. I'm gonna say, I don't know. We did something in science, and it won't even tell you maybe the most meaningful moments for them, impactful moments for them. What happened with their friends, or what did the teacher do that was like crazy or weird or funny, or so really. And then that also applies to our workday and our lives, right? So really, there's so much around, I call it utopia living, for the mind, for the spirit, for the body, for our relationships. But I also want to talk about the workplace, because this came up a lot in the sacred space session that you did. So I have a background as a third generation entrepreneur, but also working in corporate America, specifically in the areas of global talent acquisition, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and executive. And I will tell you, especially in the DEI space, and I still do consulting in this space, it's amazing to see what is unpacked. So the women in your conversation, many of them were saying that they feel so isolated and they feel so alone, and the types of microaggressions. And I just want to call this out and say that's just a nice little flowery word to place on psychological, emotional, and mental abuse a lot of times. The microaggressions are macroaggressions that cut deep. And I will say some people don't really recover very well. I actually know someone that actually had a mental break from dealing with microaggressions in that same age range that you're referring to. So I want to say, if you are watching this and you're in a position to be an ally, I want to say, if you see something, say something. I want to say, be an advocate for being treated properly in your work environments, because we're spending more time at work than we are at home. And unfortunately, those relationship dynamics are really a lot of times hurting us. They're hindering us. And they are attacks and they are assaults. And so I don't care the flowery words that we're using in a corporate environment. It's not okay. And that looks like everything from muting a person's voice, not acknowledging when they say something, giving someone else credit, passing someone over for an opportunity, a special project, a promotion, to being downright insulting. But a lot of times it's very subtle, but we all see it. And we talk about something in a lot of the work that I do around the inclusion. We tend to include people that are most like us because we feel most comfortable. But for Black people in a corporate environment, we are typically the minority. Most of my career, I've been one of the onlys. It's amazing that I did a group conversation recently, and these women were talking about being the onlys. They were, and there was only a couple of the onlys on the call. And so just to be in a space constantly where most people don't look like you already, it creates a level of mental challenge. But then to be treated differently, it wears on you. Or to be treated poorly, or to be more escalated and less likely to be promoted. And so the things that we give a pass, we see our peers get a pass for, maybe they didn't contribute in the meeting. How are they treated? If they are held in an area of what we might call like being appreciated. While a lot of times we just feel tolerated. So we don't participate, it could be because we're going through something horrible. It could be somebody at home that has COVID, or, and maybe that's what's, but maybe we're not getting the compassion or the care of how are you, Naya? Is everything okay? Where maybe my colleague is everything okay? How can we help you? So it just, there's lots of ways that it can just kind of chip away.
Certainly.
At us.
Yeah.
To kill our spirit and our soul.
Yeah.
You want to speak to that, Leslie?
Yeah. And it ties into the stigma of like the quote strong Black woman, but also to this idea that other people don't see us as worthy of needing care. right? They say, oh, Naya's strong, she can handle it. They may not even in their mind say, oh, she's a strong Black woman, but oh, Naya's fine, she's resilient, right? So there's this idea that other people don't see us as valuable or worthy of needing extra care or extra attention, right? Those biases that are subconscious in one's mind that says, I'm going to show up for the person who looks like me, but I'm not going to show up in the same way for the person who doesn't look like me, right? And so then we feel that neglect, we feel that abuse, we feel, that hurt and that pain. And just like we were talking about with social media, right? In our youth, our kids going through this, we can go through a similar thing in corporate America, in academia, and nonprofit sectors, right? Where we aren't appreciated and loved and valued. And that hurts, right? And that messes with us psychologically. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much to unpack here. There's so much to unpack here. So what I want to do is just open it up for does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions in the chat, go ahead and add it. If you have any comments, go ahead and add them. If there's certain things that you have found to be very helpful for you in your own, self-care, or your family, go ahead and add it. And I also want to, applaud. I want to first applaud, our health and wellness practitioners in the Black community. I know in terms of medical physicians, if I'm not mistaken, I think the population size is about 3%. And so it's not very large. And I just want to say, for those of you that are practicing, I know that this is a tough time to be practicing in any area because we're dealing with so much, right? And you're seeing so much loss and so much grief, and you're being taxed not only from a, what am I trying to say? Medical physician, but even a mental health provider. I know, Leslie, you're like on wait list, I believe, with your practice, because people are starting to seek out the help because they really do understand that they need it. So I just want to applaud everyone that's in the space, because I know that it's hard. It's hard to be in this space, but I also want to encourage you, because I talk to some folks that are like, I know physicians that are choosing not to practice anymore. So I want to encourage you to press pause, to take the time that you need and consider getting back in the game on some level if you're thinking about getting out, because we need you. Because we have had so much distrust for real reasons. And that's the thing that we also have to recognize. We have to understand the why we have stigmas, the why we don't trust. And there are real reasons why. So I don't ever want to ignore how we got here. I just want us to make sure that we're getting the care that we need. Right. I posted yesterday, and one of the things I said is, you are worth it. You are worth it. You are valuable. You are created for a divine purpose, uniquely, each and every one of you, each and every one of us. And so we need you. The world needs you. The world's waiting for you to show up in your purpose, in your passions, in your gifts in a way that no one else on this planet can. And the only way to do that, which is going to not only make you fulfilled and empowered, but empower the world around you, is if we're healthy and if we're whole and if we're well. And it's just like brushing our teeth. We can't do it just one time and it's done. Right. It's an ongoing occurrence. Just like drinking water, just like eating food. This is a daily act of self-care, and what some might call it radical self-care, call it what you will. So a few things that I'm going to share, very few simple holistic lifestyle practices that really help us in terms of our mental well-being and just holistic wellness. I want to encourage you to, one, start taking an inventory of how you're feeling. Emotional intelligence, becoming more self-aware of when you start to feel that little bit of angst in your stomach, that tightness in your chest, the tightness in your shoulders, just a little bit of stress. Take inventory early and quick, okay? And just taking a moment to just anchor yourself in some cleansing breaths and just say, maybe you're just saying, I got this. Maybe you're saying an affirmation. Maybe you say a little prayer. Maybe you just say a word. Maybe you say a mantra, whatever that is for you. But just knowing who you are and whose you are I know for me, keeps me anchored, knowing what I've already been able to get through, and I can get through this too.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I will take a moment, a mindful moment, just to do that in a few breaths and say, what's causing this? And is there anything that I can do to respond? Because it's not the stimulus, it's the response. And I don't want to be reactionary. So taking a moment to not react, but to respond. So maybe that is taking a moment to write or typing your phone how you're feeling. Take a moment to just maybe unpack that.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be 5 minutes, it can be 2 minutes. Okay. Going for a walk,
Mhm.
turning on some uplifting music, listening to an inspiring podcast or YouTube. Setting some boundaries is a very real thing.
Always.
Okay. For our own mental health and well being, setting some boundaries, learning when to say no,
Mhm.
having times where you do unplug from work, email, computer, all the things, and making sure that you have some time to create your own self care practice, whether it's the walk, the music, joining Utopia for a yoga class, Tai Chi, Pilates, having a talk with your girlfriends, scheduling time with a therapist, all of those things, making healthier choices. Leslie, did you want to add on to that before we close out with a mindful moment?
Yeah. So when we have those practices, make them rituals, make those the cornerstones of your day, right? So have a morning ritual, have an afternoon ritual, have a nightly ritual, have a routine. Really, I'm just using your words, create the practice and make sure it's personal for you and let that book in your day. And that can really anchor you. So
Yes.
not just any old time I feel like journaling. I journal at this time generally, right? I shower at any time. I like to shower at 9 o'clock and it helps me to wind down.
Mhm.
So practice, rituals, have a flow.
Have a flow. Have a flow. Absolutely. So we're going to go into, those of you that know me know that I'm a big practitioner of mindfulness and gratitude. And so I just want us to understand that mindfulness is simply the act of being fully present. A guided mindfulness practice is a guided meditation. Just being fully aware. We'll do a few cleansing breaths. Life is in the breath. A lot of times our blood pressure is going up when we get stressed because we are tight and we're not breathing and we're holding all of this tension. So we're going to relax and release and breathe in some peace and harmony. And
Yes.
some of the benefits of that, of mindfulness, is more cognitive flexibility, improved working memory, stress reduction, reduced rumination, because we can grab hold of what we're thinking about. And instead of thinking about what is wrong, we can think about what has gone well today, what is going well in my life, the fact that I'm healthy, the fact that I have friends, community, the fact that it's the sun's shining outside, or the fact that it's raining and it's
Mhm.
calming and it's peaceful. We can choose how we respond to everything.
Absolutely. So much choice.
Yes, it can also increase our focus and allow us to be centered. So those are just few of the benefits. And as we go through this, I want us to think about this, that we can choose to live life by design, not by default.
Mm.
What's normative is not always healthy. So let's change the narrative around our mental health,
Mhm.
our physical health. Let's get the support that we need. Okay? So I'm going to invite you to take a moment to close your eyes, take in a nice cleansing breath, or you can lower your gaze, sit upright. I invite you to plant your feet on the floor if you're sitting in a chair. If you're in bed, that's okay. And just allow yourself to even feel the support of the chair behind your back. Lower your shoulders. Even relax your jaw. If your tongue is at the roof of your mouth, let that relax as well. A lot of times we're holding so much stress and tension, and we have no idea that we are. Placing one hand on your heart and one hand on your abdomen, I'm going to invite you to take in a cleansing breath, breathing in peace and serenity. Exhaling out any stress or anxiety. Again, breathing in peace and harmony. Slowly exhaling out through your nose or mouth, whatever you prefer. Any tension, any heaviness. With your next breaths, I invite you to do a body and bring focus to your neck, shoulders, loosening any tension. Doing a nice slow neck rotation, bringing your neck to center and rotating in the opposite direction. Releasing again any stress, any tension, or heaviness. Rotating your shoulders back and bringing your awareness to your upper, middle, and lower back. Even into the seat of your chair. Your legs feeling supported. Feeling the bottom of your seat or whatever supporting you. Just taking a moment to even embrace this time of stillness. Not thinking about what's ahead, not thinking about the to-do list, but just being in the gift of this present moment. As you exhale, releasing all that does not serve us, the critique, the comparison, the I should have, could have, releasing everything that is not life-giving, that is not serving. As you breathe in and focus into your legs, your ankles, maybe even rotating them, and then your feet, feeling firmly grounded and rooted and planted, feeling stable. Feeling stable in a time when there's so many things going on around us, feeling grounded and rooted in this very moment. And with your eyes still closed, just allow yourself to become aware of the sun that's shining in, maybe through your window or the light that's in the room, and envisioning that light as a light of life, of health, of vitality, of healing, of nourishment, of love, of abundance, of joy, of resilience. This light is life-giving, and it's starting at the base of your feet. And as you're breathing in, that light is just moving through your legs, your core, your center, your heart. And as you exhale, you're releasing anything that's dark, anything that's not life-giving. Every time you exhale, you're releasing all those things. And as you're taking your next breath, you're breathing in self-compassion, permission, permission to pause, permission to be honest and vulnerable and transparent, permission to get the support that you need, because that's loving yourself. And when you're loving yourself, you show others how to love you, and you show others how to love themselves. And you show others that it's okay to give themselves permission. And that's radical self-care. With your next cleansing breath, We're breathing that light into our mouth, the words that we speak to ourselves and others, into our eyes, the way we see ourselves as a masterpiece, and how we see how we see the world and others, and into our thoughts. We're breathing in life-giving thoughts of joy, of strength, of resilience, of permission to pause, of permission for support, reminding us that we are worth it, we are valuable, we are created with a purpose, and committing to yourselves to invest in our health because it's our wealth and it's our abundance. And I'll close this out with this. Health is a human right, not to be purchased, but it is an investment. It is one that we can make in ourselves. And in order for us to achieve true wealth that money cannot buy, we have to start with investing in ourselves, through self-care, through self-love. And with that, I invite you to take a final cleansing breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Feel free to share a thought, a word, reflection, anything that comes to mind, either in the chat or just out loud. Or anything you'd like to share, Leslie? Look like you just took a power nap. I love it.
Whenever you mindfulness me, I'm always in the third heaven. So I come back like, what are we doing? Gratitude. Thank you for this space, and thank you for the mindfulness activity, and just so full of peace and love and gratitude for the moment.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want you all to take this moment and these practices with you throughout today. I want to encourage you to write down at least 3 ways you will commit to your own self-care practice, your own self-love, whether it's a walk, whether it's journaling. And I really want you, if you haven't checked in and you feel the need, please commit to yourself, to reaching out, getting the support that you need in a therapist, a thought partner, a counselor. And Leslie, can you share a resource for people to get started if they just don't even know where to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Psychologytoday.com, therapyforblackgirls.com, openpathcollective.org, I think, are some really great ones that you can look for therapists. And we have profiles, so you get to take a look at our credentials, at our mode of therapy, our methodology, who we treat, how we treat. So it is your choice, right? You get a choice in choosing your practitioner. So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love it, Marquita. Love it. I'm going to add some of those links. We'll add them to the comments of the post, so you'll have those. Join us. We do free trial available, Utopia Spa and Global Wellness. So that's utopiasgw.com. Join us. Sign up your companies, your organizations, or individually. We have live classes 6 days a week, multicultural wellness, allowing you to experience the world through wellness. And we also have our on-demand library 24/7, hundreds of classes that you can take by category. And again, we have our amazing upcoming retreat. So I believe you have to get away sometimes to go up and focus on your self-care, your well-being, and the way travel really allows the mind to open up the possibilities, as well as creating global community. And there's a social impact piece as well. So that can all be found at utopiasgw.com. Thank you all, and make it a Utopia Living Day. See you soon. Bye. Thank you, Leslie.
thank you.